everyone, and welcome to the Edu Talk Pod.
On today's episode, we have a very special guest.
Hi, thank you for having me. My name is Amy. I am a psychotherapist working with the Voluntary Welfare Organization of Singapore.
What do you think are kinds of like barriers and obstacles that they need to overcome just to reach out and ask for help?
I think in general is the stigma, because while at least in Singapore context, it's a lot more open nowadays, but there are still stigma. So you could see many of us, many of the teens, not approaching the school for help, because I think that would be an area whereby they will be most familiar, but at the same time, people will get to know, right? Yeah. So stigma is one thing, I guess. In terms of culture, some culture, they are not very familiar with mental health condition. So then that will also stop them from seeking help. The other thing that we saw quite often would be confidentiality. I think things are not very sure how confidential those information need to be divulged
Yeah.
during the session. So those are the things that could deter teens from seeking help. And not forgetting accessibility. Like if I don't go to school to seek help, then where do I go? So not all teens have that readily, that information readily. Yeah.
Okay, so you mentioned confidentiality, and I think that's something that many students worry about if they do want to approach a counselor for help, like their school counselor. Are you familiar with the confidentiality guidelines in Singapore?
It varies from practices to practices. However, there's pretty standard one that you could see across the industry. I think one of them is that if there is a risk of self-harm, then there will be a breach of confidentiality.
Yeah.
And if there is a risk of harm to others, then there will be a need to breach confidentiality. And the other one is if there is issues such as incest, violence, then again,
Yeah.
that we need to breach the confidentiality. As long as they're underage.
Which is the one, right?
Yeah, so
Yeah.
then there will be some need
Mm-hmm.
in collaboration with the parents.
Yeah.
However, having said that, we have, especially in our own practice, we notice that there are a lot of teens who refuse or reluctant
Yeah.
to have their parents involved.
Mm-hmm.
And it becomes really hard for us,
Yeah.
right? So actually the ministry is having talks to
Of,
see if
what to
if
do.
yes,
Yeah.
like if we could still see the teens without
Mhm.
having the parental
Yeah.
consent, and what are the ways that we could
yeah.
go around that, because we do have teens that come to us and then they drop out halfway
Mm-hmm.
because they say, oh, if you have to let my parents know, then I am not coming along. Yeah, so then the ministry has to probably think through.
Mhm. Yeah,
Yeah.
like how to best help them.
Exactly. Okay.
When it comes to asking for help, a lot of people don't know when it's better to ask for professional help and when it's better to just talk about it with people around you, your friends, your peers.
Right.
So what would you say is like the clear like not even a clear defining line, but like an indication that maybe you should be seeking
Yeah.
more professional?
That your friends are not capable to give you the help that you need.
Yeah, I think having friends and family around you is definitely a great resource. However, there is a limit how much they could help you, and sometimes the advice or the way that they communicate with you, even though it's well-meaning, it may not be helpful. So when you feel that things are not going any better for you, even after speaking with them, rather your mood or your condition or your situation did not improve, then that could be a good indication that seeking professional help may be the next mean that you could explore.
I see. I think I want to ask what are different kinds of therapies available for students?
Okay, this is really interesting because there is no specific type of therapy for different age group. There isn't. In fact, there are more the type of therapy that a professional practices. For example, a different practitioner made them specialize in different kind of therapy.
Yeah.
So the one that are really common is CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy. We also have many different type of therapy that is not belonging to the family of the talk therapy. So CBT and things like that are the talk therapy, but we have
What is
experiential.
talk therapy?
So talk therapy is basically the therapist and you talk,
Yeah,
right?
like
They
talk,
talk
yeah.
through
The issues.
the
and stuff.
issues.
Yeah.
That's right. So, but there are a lot of experiential therapies, such
Mhm.
as psychodrama.
Oh,
So they do
wow.
a lot of work through the body.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there are also therapies such as EMDR, like
yeah.
eye movement desensitization reprocessing, EMDR.
Uh-huh.
There's also the brain and body work kind of therapy known as brain spotting.
Uh-huh.
So the very traditional one are the like CBT, narrative therapy.
And those are just like talking through your problems rather than
That's right.
Okay.
Those are talking through. And then I think the new age one are a lot in neuroscience based on the body and the brain connection.
Oh,
Yeah.
how does that work? The body and the brain thing.
Okay, so basically the therapy belief or the theory belief that the brain and the body are one, connected. And a lot of the pain and a lot of experiences are locked in the body. So if you're interested, you can read a book known as The Body Keeps Score. Yeah. So the body remembers the emotion or the experience that one goes through. So during that time, if you try to intervene through talk, then you're only trying to intervene through the cognition of a person.
Yeah.
And then, well, then this group of people believe that it may not clear and help the person totally. However, they believe that if you go through the body and getting the body and the brain to heal, because our brain has healing, natural healing potential. So through that process, then the brain helps the body to heal. And that healing does not come through talking, but it just comes through some creating new neural pathway.
That's very cool. Very
Yeah.
interesting. Do teens usually go for that? Or it's like, because in my experience, I've only heard of CBT in like the mainstream media. I've never heard of
Right.
like new age like therapy methods.
Like I mentioned earlier, I don't think there is this thing such as whatever age group is more beneficial with certain kind of therapy. I rather think that it is the therapist.
Yeah.
Like the therapist may be more like specialized in particular modality.
Yeah.
And then if you work well with the therapist, then that would be it.
I see.
Right.
I see.
Of course, then if we have children, having said that, children who have probably not so able to articulate yet, therapy such as play therapy, sand play, water play, dance, puppet, then those therapy may be more appropriate.
Suitable. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
For teens who don't really have the monetary means to go for external therapists and who don't really want to go for therapy because maybe they don't want their family finding out or whatever. What would you suggest would be like a good path for them?
Yeah, actually, being in Singapore, we are very, very lucky because I think the government recognize the need around the youth mental health. So many organizations set up the youth mental health department that provide intervention for the youth mental health without any fee. I don't think there's any fee. So one of the things that the teens can really do is to approach the school teacher, one that you can trust, and the school will be able to lead the teens to all sorts of community resources that are available in Singapore.
Could you name drop some of these like community resources?
Sure, like Care Corner Insight.
Yeah.
They actually provide, like teens can go online, register themselves, pick up a call, they will talk to you through the call, and some of them identify to be needing some more intervention, then they can meet them face to face, etc.
But at the
Right.
start, is it anonymous or do you have to like say who you are?
You can choose to be.
Okay.
Yeah. But of course, then they will eventually like to know who you
Yeah.
are.
Yeah.
That's right.
So, of course, especially nowadays, we live in a more digitalized world. So, a lot of people, most people, especially teens, are very influenced by social media. And there's obviously perks to having social media in the way that you have more information about mental health and all of that.
That's right.
But with that, there's also people who self-diagnose,
Right.
which can be both good and bad, I think. So, what do you think are potential drawbacks to
Self-diagnosis.
self-diagnosis? Yeah.
I think the biggest drawback to self-diagnosis is misinterpretation. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you could read some and then without the proper guidance, you may get it all wrong.
Mhm.
And that could really lead unwanted anxiety, right? So then the person may be really anxious and really misdiagnosis is definitely not helpful. Yeah, well, having said that, I have to agree with you that having the increased awareness about the mental health challenges uh, through the social media definitely will be it helps to elevate
Yeah.
and empower
Break
the individual,
stigma.
right? Yeah. To look at how they could uh, overcome the challenges that they're facing. I guess the way to mitigate is really to have a balance
Mhm.
while you get information online, but you also be very wary of being like self-diagnosis, and things like that. Yeah. And when in doubt, I think it's good to seek a professional help.
Yeah.
I think that's always the rule.
So I wanted to ask, like, because I use social media a lot, what are the main challenges that students have, or like teens in general have when they use like social media? What are the key issues that they face, like with FOMO and I don't know, stuff like that?
Right. I like to think that one of the challenges or issue that they face is to the pressure of constantly staying online,
Yeah.
right? They have to constantly stay online. They have to stay updated, and they have to participate in the event that is shown on the media.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I guess the other thing that this social media is also how they could perceive themselves as being excluded,
Yeah.
how they perceive themselves as not as favorable as those that are being shown online,
Yeah.
not understanding that what are shown online may not be the full reality.
Yeah.
So I think that is the part truth that they see, and then they start to compare with themselves and see how disadvantaged they are.
Yeah.
So I think those could be possible challenges for people.
Yeah. So like how should people cope with that? Because I think there is a need to fit in. So, I try like deleting TikTok and stuff, but it's really hard because then all my friends, they know the slangs, they know what's going on in the media, and you
Right.
just can't keep up. So I think finding that balance is really difficult. Do you have any tips on how you
Uh,
should do that?
I think you said it really right, because the word is really finding the balance.
Yeah.
I always encourage the youth to look at the content. Like some of the content on TikTok, honestly, is
Beneficial.
very beneficial.
Yeah.
And not only that, I think it propel a lot of youth to look at their goals,
Yeah.
and it's very positive.
Mhm.
I think those are fine.
Mm.
And okay, so if you have to go online to read something, and what would you want to choose to read something that make yourself feel so bad?
Yeah, I agree. I
Right?
agree.
Yeah. So I think that would be a really good indication. Like
Mhm.
if you feel good and if you feel motivated, positive,
Yeah.
then you know that it is not a toxic environment.
Yeah.
But on the contrary, if it's otherwise, then we need to know that
Yeah.
retreating
Learn how
from
to
it
like
is,
take a step
yes,
back.
taking a step
Yeah.
back would be the best
Yeah.
at that time, right?
I think I could add on to that. So for me personally, what works is that TikTok has like a For You page and a followings page.
Yeah.
So like a For You page, from what I've read about it, they never give you the content that you actually want to see. They give you content that is similar so that you stay online and you continue to like scroll through, and through doing that, you'd find like different interests. So what I found is that I usually find creators that I like
Right.
creators who have like goals that are in line with mine. So recently I started gymming, so I'm on Gym Talk.
Right.
And it's really useful. So I find like all these female gym influencers who are killing it, and then I just follow them, and instead of going on my For You page where like sometimes the content is a bit whack, I just use
Right.
the followings page. Yeah,
Right.
so I just get like positive media and I feel really good afterwards. Yeah.
This is really good. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, this is a very good example to see, to show that you actually need to discern what you read,
Yeah.
regardless whether it's online or offline.
Agree.
Yeah.
Right.
So I think that for everyone, no matter like what they're studying or what stage of life they're in, there's always like pressures for them, whether it comes in the form of like academic pressures or
Right.
like expectations.
Right.
And I feel like we really need to find like balance. So how do you suggest that we find that balance?
So I think one of the key thing is not only just about listening to your body, is having a routine, like having a self-care routine. So we don't, how should I say? Yeah, so when we are sick, we go see a doctor. But prior to getting sick, we want to make sure that we have we eat well, we sleep well, we drink lots of water. So when to do those things as a routine, as a healthy routine. So adopt a self-care routine. There are 8 dimensions of self-care. So one of them, of course, is physical, then spiritual, just to name a few, emotional, etc. So, and different people find benefit in different domains. Like for myself, I really depend a lot on spiritual. So I attend church, I do prayers, and of course, there are people who are a social being. So to them, their self-care regime is to make sure that they have some social interaction with people. And there are also people who likes physical interventions like exercise, gymming. So basically, find a regime or a routine that fits yourself. So that is one thing. And then when you start to know that your body is not responding very well to you, then seek help. Early intervention is always recommended. So seek help earlier, reach out early so that like there's this metaphor that I often use, like if you're down at the pit, to climb up is really hard, but if you're hovering just at the rim of the pit, to pick yourself up is a lot easier. So knowing your own body and how you react, that is really important. So pay attention to your body, pay attention to how your body is reacting. So example is prior to being this line, I never knew that when I'm stressed up, I actually will experience a lot of neck tension. But nowadays, I notice whenever I have a lot of neck tension, then I know that that is really a clear sign that I am either overworked, overwhelmed, too much stress, etc. So then those times, I will take myself out from the situation. Then I start to practice some self-care regime. What do you do for self-care?
What do I do for self-care? Okay, I'll just talk about like an A levels in general.
Right.
I did not do self-care at all.
Or
No time, did not sleep a lot, did not
Right.
eat a lot. It was very stressful. But I think like now that I'm out of A levels and I am more chill, I mean I have like a really good routine of like waking up and just going to the gym and then
Right.
doing like a really long skincare when I am not lazy, which very rarely happens. But the gymming in the morning usually
good, huh?
happens. Yeah, and I think that like grounds me and
Yeah, for some people they like to practice mindfulness.
yeah,
Yeah, so and doing
breathing.
yes, breathing
Yeah.
exercise, and those are really good grounding exercise. And it doesn't take long, like 5 minutes, you will see the benefit.
Yeah.
Wow, isn't it? Really well said, because you guys are all A-level student. So when you have a routine, then you will not be overwhelmed by the A level. You'll continue your routine. But the thing is that if you don't, then it's very easily
Yeah.
overturned.
Mhm.
And then that will add on to the existing
Yeah.
stress that you're already experiencing,
Yeah.
right? And one
Mhm.
of the things that you mentioned was really interesting. You mentioned procrastinating. So sometimes maybe good if you notice that procrastination is a theme in your life, then actually therapy helps a lot in looking at where does that come from and how could you
Solve it.
manage that,
Yeah.
right? Manage that. manage the urge to cover up the work instead, or to delay the work. And then the benefit can come a long way.
So like why do students in general procrastinate?
Actually, there are many reasons, right? I actually don't think that I'm good enough. So if I don't face it, if I don't do it, then I don't feel. So that could be one of them. So if they have this script that they hold on since young, that I'm
Yeah.
not good, I'm not good enough, then that could be one of the way to
Mhm.
procrastinate,
Yeah.
right? The other thing about procrastination is also largely due to anxiety. So it could be one of the way that they cope with the anxiety that they're already
yeah.
facing.
A lot of the times, you know, when we start procrastinating, the minute we start, we just can't stop. Like you're in it and then you're like,
Yeah.
I'm done for the day. This is
Yeah.
it. Like
Right.
I don't want to study anymore. So I think that for me, I found that just like slowing down and learning to just like take a deep breath and go like, I have the power to like start again. Sounds kind of cheesy, but it works. Like just slowing down and realizing. And I think circling back to what you mentioned like a while back, you're saying that when you get like anxious and stuff, you feel like tense in your neck.
Right.
Yeah, like how do you know, like for me, I don't really notice these things. So how do you think that's like a good like coping strategy to start
It's
noticing
really
these
a very good
things?
practice. So what you can do is every morning, or really every morning, every afternoon, or every evening, choose a time that's most suitable for you, and then you close your eyes and put your feet on the ground,
Yeah.
and then just imagine as if there is a laser
Yeah.
X-ray that's coming down through your whole body, and try to identify and try to make sense of the body's sensation. So you close your eyes and you let the laser go through part very slowly, and then you will become very in tune with what is happening with your body.
Mhm.
And if you do it day by day, then you realize that someday certain part of your body just feel different.
Yeah. Oh,
And that
wow.
is when you realize that, hey, that could be related to stress.
What do you think are some like benefits in general of being aware of your bodily sensations?
Before your brain tell you that I am
Stressed.
overwhelmed
Yeah.
or stressed, your body actually already
Oh,
telling
wow.
you. It's just that
That's
you're
cool.
not picking it up.
Yeah.
So imagine if you picked it up before your brain tell you so, you will, like I mentioned, early intervention is always
Better,
right. A lot of time it's like when you, by the time you know, you're at the middle of the pit, and then you need to do a lot more to get yourself up again. So knowing that is really good. So just imagine when there's fire, your hand touch the fire. Do you need your brain to say, hey, take away your hand? Actually, you don't, right? You naturally take away your hand
Yeah, it's
because
like
your body,
reflex, yeah.
yes, it's a reflex, right? Yeah, so exactly. So if you learn to be very in tune with your body,
Yeah.
you realize that very rarely you allow it to go to the point that you
Yeah.
couldn't pick yourself up.
Yeah. Oh.
Yeah, so that is where it's very beneficial for all of us to understand what is going on with the body.
Wow. That's
Yeah.
very insightful. I never knew that. I think circling back to what you mentioned before,
Right.
you were explaining that one of the reasons why students procrastinate is because they think that they are not good enough. Where do you think this belief that, you know, you're inadequate comes from?
There could be many sources where this belief comes from, and usually this sort of self-defeating beliefs come from when you're very little, together like from the caregiver or from the environment. So it may not be something that is meaning of the caregiver, but it could be an interpretation of the individual. And so this is the part that's really interesting. So if once I start to believe that I'm not good enough, then I will start to look for cues to reinforce
The self-belief.
yes, my self-belief. And then when that starts, then the belief just snowball. And usually that happens. So it may not necessarily be something that is done maliciously. It could be just something that is out of a misinterpretation. Yeah. But of course, having said that, we have in especially in the Asian culture, like I remember I remember some of my like story with my grandmas is that, oh, don't ever praise your kids, then
Yeah.
they'll become big-headed. Well, I have I'm really blessed. My mother-in-law is a Christian, so she believes that from your mouth you profess good things. So she always praises like my children and me and everyone around her. But Asian culture actually, we don't see a lot of that in Asian culture.
Yeah. It's hard to come by.
Right. So sometimes that could be also a source
Yeah.
where the kids picked up that, oh, maybe I'm never going to live up to the certain expectation that the adults have of me.
Sometimes some parents don't really like getting criticism from their kids, in the sense that sometimes when parents say something and their kids are like, hey, maybe don't say that because it's not very constructive or whatever. I feel like some parents don't want to hear that. So
Yeah.
they refuse to change the way that they say it
Right.
because they think that the way that they say it is correct
Okay.
and nothing else. I feel like that's not very good,
Right.
because then like there's always going to be the disconnect between the parent and the kid, because after a while the kid is not going to listen to the parent anymore,
Right.
and so whatever the parent says won't impact the kid either. Yeah.
You also sounded like very similar or very related to the Asian culture, isn't it? Like, I'm the
Yeah,
father, I'm
yeah.
the mother.
Yeah.
So what I
Like,
say
you know,
goes.
exactly. Like you can't question what I'm saying. Just have to do it.
Oftentimes feel that I'm in the position whereby it's so disadvantage. In the past, whatever my mom say goes. But when I'm a parent, it's no longer like that.
Can I like add on to that?
Sure.
I think that for me, I think when you communicate with like your parents and stuff, I think they're always very well meaning, when they tell you like this is what you should be doing with your life and blah 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 blah. It's always very well meaning. So sometimes when like I criticize my parents, they don't listen to it because they think that I don't know what I'm talking about. But I think that at the same time, like recognizing that there is a way to communicate your needs in like a more constructive way. So let's say my dad is like being annoying and then I tell him to stop being annoying, but I'm really mad. So like when I say it to him, it's like super blunt. I guess that's not very constructive too. So
Right.
how do you think I should approach my parents if they're being really annoying? Like how do I learn to communicate my needs with them? Is there any like tips you
I
have?
think it's not only communicating with parents, like communicating when we ourselves are flooded. So in the emotional term, when we say that we couldn't manage or regulate ourselves, then we are flooded. So when we are angry, we are sad and so on, then we are flooded, right? So communicating at those times is always a bad time.
Yeah.
So finding a good time to communicate is really important.
Yeah.
So one of the things is to self-regulate first.
Okay.
Like different people self-regulate differently. One of the good things that people can try doing is really to tap your feet bilaterally, or even tapping yourself bilaterally. It helps to regulate yourself.
Oh, why?
Because of the left brain, right brain,
Science.
and new neural pathway created when you actually tap yourself. And when you could regulate yourself and for some people it's tapping, for some people it's breathing, and then put up your requests for your parents or whoever to stop certain behavior that it annoys you. I think then that would be helpful. Like you mentioned, I think they will take it well if it's said in a constructive way.
Yeah.
Right.
Which never really happens. Sadly, never really happens.
Right. It will start happening if we start to regulate ourselves more. And you will notice that the more you practice that, the more regulated you can be. So I think this is really one important skill of every individual. So if you have that, regardless whether you're communicating with your co-colleague in the future or your bosses or your client, I think then that gives you an edge, right? Yeah. When you could regulate yourself, then you could. Because when we are dysregulated, I think cognitively we are not functioning as well.
I know that for a lot of teenagers, they can be very moody and sometimes come off as maybe like harsh, abrupt, or maybe just like immature. So how can parents, peers, and teachers differentiate just like a moody outburst from a teenager from a more serious
Mental health
mental
issue.
health issue. Yeah.
One of the things that the parents or teachers could take notice of is the duration. How long this particular mood swing lasts. So that is one good indication. The other thing is that anything that involve or lead to risk, then we need to look at it very seriously. So if a individual basically feel moody compared to another individual who maybe not so moody, but then constantly thinking about ending the life, then the other ones poses a higher risk.
Mm-hmm.
So that could be an indication of how serious, whether they are fleeting suicide thoughts or whether they are plans to even end the life. And those will then indicate whether one should seek professional help.
Mm-hmm.
Besides this, the duration of also the severity, like how much does it impede the person daily functioning? So if the moodiness get to the person until the person basically cannot get off bed, cannot go to school, doesn't want to shower, then it really starts to impede on daily life. Then that, of course, seems to be another good indication for them to seek professional help. And teenagers sometimes have this mood swing. Could be also caused by the hormones.
Yeah.
And if it's just purely hormones, it will pass.
Yeah.
That's the good news, right?
Yeah. How should parents like deal with moody teenagers?
Oh, okay. That's the advice that I gave to myself when I have moody teenagers. Is to really leave them alone. Yeah. So I
Give them
remember,
space.
to give them space. I remember telling myself that, they're angry not at me. Because most parents, they will say, what did I do? What did I do to deserve this? I give you food, I give you clothing, I clothe you, I give you food, and oh my goodness.
Shelter.
Yeah. And then why do I deserve that? And then so they get really
Yeah.
reactive, right? So what I did during my time is I have to tell myself they are angry and they're not angry at me, it is not about me. Yeah. So then I will actively take myself off the site
Yeah.
to prevent any kind of altercation.
Yeah.
However, having said that, what I would do is that when I see them simmer down, I will go to them and say that this is not the way that you should speak with me, or I don't appreciate the way that you speak with me. Sometimes I will do that and I will tell them, please go back to your room, and when you can speak to me properly, then we'll talk again. So I will do that. And really, I think 10 out of 10 times they will come out and after a while and they'll say they're sorry. Yeah. So I think the thing to really avoid is you avoid having two explosive person in the same place at one time. I think that's what we're trying to do. Yeah. So giving space is really helpful.
Okay.
Yeah. Is that what you would appreciate? I mean, your parents doing, what else would you appreciate your parents?
I think that's good. I think
Yeah.
that would work because I feel like a lot of parents, like just like you said, they're like, oh, I don't really deserve what my kid is doing because I give them all of everything and there's no reason. But sometimes teenagers just have no reason to be like that.
Yeah.
So I think they should just give
And
them
actually
time.
most of the time during this period is they
Yeah.
really don't have reason.
Yeah.
Like they don't want to answer you, they don't want to even say anything
Sounds
to
like
you.
me.
Yeah.
Sounds like me.
And of course then on the parents' end is that they likely feel really rejected.
Yeah.
They feel really rejected because they were most needed when you were little,
Yeah.
right? And then now you don't even want to speak with them. So
Yeah.
I really, I mean, I
feel understand,
empathize
yeah.
with them, right? But to avoid that, and oftentimes I would tell people that during that period of time when your kids are going through this puberty, I think preserving the relationship is the
Yeah.
utmost important. Yeah.
Can I like add on? So me and my mom, I schedule like a meal with her every week. I think that's really helped to like build a relationship together. So I text her every week and I'm like, so we're going here. And then I think me and my mom we have this thing how we like to like try different cafes. And yeah, I think that's nice. Like just scheduling a meal, yeah, and just setting aside that time to
It's
like be
really
with
cool.
them. Yeah, I think that's very helpful.
And just to add on as well, like not only just to have set a time for meals, sometimes setting a time to talk
Yeah,
is very helpful
yeah,
because
Mm.
people need to be prepped,
yeah.
right? Like after a hard day work,
Mhm.
and you then start a very difficult topic of conversation with your mom after her hard day work, which may not be the
Yeah,
best,
yeah,
to be there for you and so on, then you may be disappointed.
yeah.
So having a appointment, so called, like, can I
Mhm.
speak with you? I need to speak with you today.
Mhm.
Or is there a time that I can speak with you? I need to discuss something that's important to me.
Yeah.
I think that prep everybody and giving
Yeah.
context, and then usually conversation like that will
Mhm.
be more fruitful.
Yeah. I think when we want to seek help and stuff, sometimes, you tend to like gaslight yourself. Is that gaslighting?
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's like, oh, my friends can cope. Why can't I? So like, let's say in A levels, I found it really hard, very stressful. But then I was like, why are my friends able to go through it and they seem very happy and I cannot cope? Do you have any like suggestions on how we should approach this?
I think besides our parent comparing ourselves with people, we tend to compare ourselves
Yeah.
with others as well,
Yeah.
right? Yeah, this is again self-sabotaging. In fact, we need to look at ourselves very differently. From everyone is really unique.
Yeah.
There are things that you could do that others may not be able to do.
Yeah.
We tend to look at what we couldn't do instead of what we could do. I think that's really not helpful. Everybody cope with stresses and managing them very differently. Not forgetting when you see an individual could manage things very, very well. That's what you see. You don't know what, in fact, you don't know what kind of support he or she may be getting. You don't know what kind of routine he or she may be already practicing. The only thing you see is that, hey, he or she is coping, but I'm not.
Mhm.
There are a lot of things that you are not seeing anyway. So instead of doing comparison, learn to adopt what could be more helpful for yourself. Like I mentioned earlier, like setting up a routine, learning self-help strategies, and capitalize on things that you are actually good at.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that is very important. Believing that every individual are unique. So there's this practice that I have been doing even to this age, right? I will look at the mirror every morning. I'll look at the mirror and I'll say, I will actually say this. I will say to myself, I say, okay, this may not be the most pretty Amy, this may not be the smartest Amy, but this is the only Amy uniquely in the whole damn world.
Oh, that's
Yeah,
so
so that's what I always say to myself. And I think it was very helpful for me because I think, and it's the truth, right? Yeah, I may not be the whatever, but
Mhm.
I can't find a duplicate.
Like accepting yourself just as you are.
And I look
Yeah.
at that and I will say that every morning, even till now.
Wow.
And I learn to
That's so
appreciate. And
cute.
so again, as whether it's youth or adults, I think we need to practice more self-compassion and also practice more sense of gratitude. I think that helps.
If we are all stressed, the same past and present. In the past, people didn't have like the awareness to talk about it. They didn't have avenues to seek help. But now we do. And I think that a common like theme that people always say is that like if you seek help, you're like weak and stuff. Or like if you have this, if in the past people had, okay, I don't know how to like phrase this question in a way that won't get cancelled. Okay, wait. Like in the past people had like did not have the awareness, but they still managed to get by. But like and now that we have the awareness, we seek help. And I think therefore like people think that we're weak. very
Okay,
sad.
so the thing is that in the past, people, not everybody get by.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that is the thing.
Uh-huh.
And we don't know how many didn't because there
Yeah.
is no information, right? But nowadays, there information, people jump, people this, you get to
Yeah.
know. But in the past, nobody knows.
Yeah.
I'm sure there are people who couldn't manage, but then nobody talk about it.
Yeah.
So the advantage when there's overflowing information is also then they could then get help timely. But in the past, people that couldn't get help, then that is when they got flooded and they're lost in time.
I think it's about like having the conversation with across generations instead of like having it as an argument. Because I feel
Right.
like a lot of times there's like a very clear disconnect between different generations about, oh, back in my day this was really hard, and then like some of the younger
Hey, my
generations
dad
like,
loves
but
to
back
say
in my
that.
day you had
eyes,
a problem.
The young
so
one will
I
roll
feel
the
like
eyes.
I feel like it often very easily becomes a
Yeah,
conflict.
yeah.
So I
Right.
think when both sides recognize that, hey, I haven't lived in your time as
No.
a teenager, you won't live in my time as a teenager.
Right.
There's gonna be a disconnect. So I think we should just be more open to having the conversation
Yeah.
instead of
Right.
making it a competition. Yeah.
This is really a great point. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think there shouldn't be a competition, because whether is it now or then, it affects the generations that
Yeah.
is
It's like a
currently
human
here, right?
emotion that everyone will be able
Because
to
even
see
now,
things.
like even you guys are going through this teenage period, your parents, like my generation, are also affected by it. And then my parents' generation also affected by what is going through currently. So I think it's all generation affected. However, I think the intensity that affects us may be very different. And having said that, the youth today has a lot more, hopefully a lot more help, a lot more avenue, resources, compared to the past.
And that's like a good thing.
Yeah, that's really a good thing. So I guess with more awareness, then you get more
Help.
resources.
You have the ability to like voice
Yeah.
what you're feeling and
Which
stuff.
is great.
Yeah.
So I personally think that whatever it is it depending on the individual using the resources for you and not let it works against you.
So I think we have come to the end of our episode, and I think that was a very insightful talk. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you for having me.
And
Thank you.
this is the end of the episode. I hope you have a good day. If you like the podcast, you should
Like,
share.
subscribe. Wait, I don't know. You should last time.
Okay, the end.